Thunderbird. The project is going to be upper ball joints and then control arm bushings. Normal steps, really the easy part is going to be getting rid of the shock. The tricky part to all of this is getting rid of the spring. We're going to start with coming in down underneath here, and we're going to take out a 1/2 inch headed bolt to remove, give us a little play in the line, and that one's already done. Then we'll do the 3 9/16 bolts, take those ones out. After that, we'll come up top side and we'll take out the top side of the shock there, and we'll be able to remove that entire piece. After that, we'll get our tool in here, we'll squeeze this whole thing down, remove it, hit the 2 bolts in back, pull the entire control arm, and be able to do it off the car. And so, at this point, we need to compress this spring. So you can see there's nothing in the middle here. We need to squeeze this in order to be able to pull it out so we can take tension off, so we can obviously pull the knuckle off the front and then pull the entire control arm out. Compressing springs is really scary. We don't like it. There is a crazy amount of potential energy stored in a compressed spring, so it's actually really dangerous. As you can see by the shape of it, we clearly can't use our wall one. We'll show you a clip of that. We tried using these ones, definitely more dangerous than the wall-mounted ones, and we can't use this one because of the way that it's shaped. If you come and look, with the spring, these naturally bend this way a bit. So not only is it trouble getting it on there, but on top of that, when we get the thread coming through, we're either contacting up top or down bottom on the control arm, so we can't go with an externally mounted clamp. So our option, unfortunately, comes down to one of these guys. So what we're going to end up doing is we'll use the fork up top, cram it through, hook this inside the spring, tighten it down, and clamp it. These are dangerous. These are scary. So kind of as a safety belt, we use vice grips, and you'll clamp them onto the spring themselves just to make sure that this doesn't slide and try to run away from you. Having said this, these are just like a safety belt. If that bastard lets loose, these might help a little bit to contain it, but realistically you're still getting in a crash. So these are dangerous. Be careful. Take your time. We got to this point where we've got it installed. We've got the fork up here. We've got the 2 hooks down here. So what you really want to focus on when you're doing this is compressing as much of the spring as possible, where we could come in here and it'd be a whole lot easier to access and get the hooks on this one and then get the fork through here. But when we're compressing, there's enough unsprung spring here where even if we compress that all the way down, you're still going to have a lot of stretch holding that in place. So what you need to focus on is making sure that you can get enough so that this essentially falls out. If you get it to the point where it's loose, but you have to use a pry bar or a hammer or something like that to really get it out of there, you're going to be in trouble, because going back in, you're going to have to do that same method, and that's always scary having this compressor on here. The other thing to mention is, even though we have a lift, even though we've got this and we can lift it up to a comfortable standing height, we are going to make sure to do this low to the ground, specifically because if this spring lets go, we want the ground to help catch it instead of bouncing around at head level. So a lot of these are extra steps that aren't technically necessary for taking it out, but with this being a scary process and a known dangerous tool, we're going to take our time, we're going to go slow, we're going to make sure to do everything as properly as possible so that we avoid getting our heads crushed. Once we do get it out, you're going to want to set it out of the way, preferably, I mean, if you've got a cabinet or something, but the big thing is getting it in an area where if it does happen to loosen up, it's not going to fly around and kill people. So try to get it in a good corner, good solid walls, not out in the shop where it can get kicked and bounced around and stuff. Anytime you're doing ball joints, you always end up cracking the castle nut loose. You get that down, don't take it all the way off, leave it down there on the bottom thread. And then if you use a pickle fork or a splitter, it usually f***s up the boot. So to avoid that, what you're going to want to do is hit it with a hammer, but you don't hit here. What you want to do is hit the knuckle right here, and that'll cause it to drop down. So you always spin the wheel one way or the other, get some access to it, and then conk on that bad boy, and then yeah, the tension will drop it on down. Alright. So I always start with removing all the nuts or the grease zerks, just so you don't break them off. At this point we're replacing all of them anyway, so it's not a big deal, but we'll go through and do it anyway. Use an axle nut, socket, impact. Sometimes if these are stubborn, you got to get a torch on them and heat them up a little bit. But in this case, we'll see how it goes. Now we are just onto the ball joint. So what we're going to do is we will take off this nut that kind of pulls out. You've got a thread that it's attached to the ball joint. If you actually look at the new part, this is what it'll look like. The ball joint itself actually goes up into this cup. We will have to take this off. I know on the last one we had to heat this with a torch to get it to expand away a little bit, and then we just use a hydraulic press and just push down on this and force that out, and then we'll just do the reverse order and get a big cup over this one and force the new one in. At this stage, because it's filthy, we're going to go ahead and clean it up. We'll just hit it with some black spray paint to stop the rust, and we'll work on reassembly. Got everything put back together, got it all reinstalled, took for a test drive. Everything is looking good, driving good. The last step, of course, because we played with all of those components, is taking it for an alignment. So we're having our guys come and pick it up, align it. Other than that, it'll be back to the customer and they'll be cruising happy. Yeah, if you guys want to keep following along, absolutely subscribe, follow us, all the normal stuff. Other than that, stay tuned.